I didn't notice the exact day it changed. There was no celebration, no warning, no dramatic moment where I looked in the mirror and saw a different man staring back. It happened the way most real changes happen, quietly, in the background, while I was busy doing ordinary things. One evening, I was driving home with the window cracked open, letting cold air keep me awake. The sun was low, the road was empty, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what I still had to prove. I wasn't rehearsing a conversation. I wasn't building a defense in my head. I wasn't rushing the moment so I could get to the next one. I just, arrived, and it hit me. I wasn't chasing anymore. If you're under 50, that might sound like a warning. If you're over 50, it might sound like relief. Because chasing is exhausting. Chasing a goal, chasing a version of yourself, chasing approval, chasing the feeling that you're finally enough. The strange thing is, nobody tells you how addictive chasing can be. It starts innocent. You want a better job? You want stability? You want to be respected? You want to be the person your family can rely on? Those are good things. But somewhere along the line, chasing quietly becomes your identity. You become the man who handles it, the man who performs, the man who stays strong, the man who keeps moving. You don't even know you're chasing anymore because everybody around you is running too. Then you hit 50 and time starts feeling different. Not in a scary way, in a clear way. Psychologists have a name for this shift. When people sense their time horizon more clearly, they naturally start prioritizing what feels emotionally meaningful over what merely looks useful for the future. It's not laziness, it's accuracy. It's the mind updating its priorities. The older I get, the more I understand that this isn't a theory on paper, it's something you feel in your chest. You stop asking, what will this get me? You start asking, what will this cost me? That's the beginning of choosing. I used to say yes too quickly. Yes to extra work. Yes to being the reliable one. Yes to drama that wasn't mine. Yes to keeping peace at the expense of my own peace. Saying yes made me feel needed, and being needed felt like being safe. But the older you get, the more you realize being needed is not the same as being loved. Being busy is not the same as being alive. Being admired is not the same as being understood. They start choosing, slowly at first, awkwardly, like learning to write with your other hand. You choose where your attention goes. You choose what you allow into your mind. You choose who gets access to your life. And here's the uncomfortable part. Some people won't like the new you, because the version of you they liked was easier to use. The version of you they liked answered immediately, fixed everything, took the blame, carried the weight. The old you could be manipulated with guilt. The new you can't. At 50, you start seeing the difference between connection and convenience. That alone is a kind of wisdom. I had a moment not long ago with an old friend. We were talking, laughing, catching up, and then the conversation drifted into the same old complaint loop. We'd run for years. Same people, same problems, same bitterness, recycled like it was entertainment. And in the middle of it, I felt something I hadn't felt before. I felt tired of it. Not tired like I needed a nap, tired like my spirit was done paying for empty noise. I changed the subject. He pulled it back. I changed it again. He pulled it back again. And suddenly I realized something else. We weren't friends because we grew together. We were friends because we suffered together. Some friendships are built on growth. Others are built on shared frustration. Both can feel like loyalty, but only one leaves you stronger. After 50, you start choosing friendships the way you choose food, not by what looks good, by what nourishes you. It doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become honest. And honesty is a kind of peace. Another change happens too, and it's subtle. Your brain stops feeding on negativity the way it used to. You still see problems. You're not naive, but you notice yourself holding onto the good a little longer. You remember the warm parts of a memory more easily. You let a small moment land, a kind word, a quiet morning, a walk that doesn't need to lead anywhere. Researchers call this the positivity effect. an adulated tendency for attention and memory to lean toward positive information more than negative. When I first read about it, it made me smile. Not because it's a magic trick, but because it describes something I've felt. My mind is tired of poison. It wants what's clean. That shift changes the kind of life you build. You stop building a life that looks impressive. You start building a life that feels stable inside. When you're younger, you chase outcomes. You want certainty. You want guarantees. You want a clear path. At 50, you realize life doesn't hand out guarantees. The closest thing to certainty is character. The closest thing to a plan is knowing what matters to you. So you choose values over vibes. You choose consistency over excitement. You choose your health, not because you're scared, but because you're finally respectful. You choose sleep. You choose a quiet breakfast. You choose to walk. You choose to drink water. You choose to stop talking to yourself in a cruel voice. Those choices don't make headlines. They make a life. And then there's regret. Regret changes shape after 50. It's not a loud, violent thing anymore. It's quieter, more honest. It shows up in the empty spaces. In the moments where you realize you were present physically, but absent emotionally. In the people you loved, but didn't know how to love well. In the years you spent trying to be impressive instead of being available. Regret can destroy a man if he uses it as a weapon. But regret can also refine a man if he uses it as a teacher. After 50, I've learned to ask regret a better question. Not, why did I do that? But what is this trying to teach me now? Because you can't rewrite the old chapter, but you can write the next page differently. That's the power of choosing. At some point, the chase ends because you finally see the price, the stress, the strained relationships, the constant pressure to perform. The way you kept promising yourself you'd rest later, enjoy later, love later. Later is a dangerous word. Later is how a lot of men lose their lives without ever losing their pulse. So, if you're listening to this and you feel a quiet shift happening in you, don't panic. Don't call it a crisis. Don't shame yourself for wanting less noise. Wanting less noise is a sign of health. This is what it looks like when you begin choosing. You choose fewer friends, but deeper ones. You choose fewer obligations, but cleaner ones. You choose to stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You choose to be present in the room you're actually in. You choose to say no without guilt. You choose to stop proving and start living. And here's the most surprising part. When you stop chasing, life doesn't shrink. Life expands because you finally have room. Room to breathe. Room to notice. Room to enjoy what you've already built. Room to become the kind of man who isn't impressive in the loud way, but is steady in the important way. So yes, after 50, you stop chasing. And if you're lucky, you start choosing. And choosing is where peace begins. There's one more thing I didn't expect. Choosing doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels lonely. Because when you stop chasing, you stop participating in certain games. You stop calling back right away. You stop explaining your decisions. You stop volunteering for roles that drain you. And some people interpret your peace as arrogance. That's when you learn another lesson. Clarity will cost you a few relationships. Not because you became worse, but because you became harder too. Control. I used to fear that. Now I see it as a kind of filtering. The relationships that survive your boundaries are the ones that were real, and the ones that don't. They were built on access, not affection. That realization can sting, but it also frees you. Because the opposite of chasing isn't laziness, it's ownership. Ownership of your time. Ownership of your nervous system. Ownership of your attention. Ownership of the last half of your life. I think about my father sometimes. He worked hard, stayed quiet, carried his stress like it was a badge. He loved us, but he didn't know how to rest. He didn't know how to receive. He didn't know how to choose himself without feeling selfish. I don't blame him. Nobody taught him, but I also don't want to repeat it. That's another thing that wakes up after 50. The urge to leave something better behind. Not just money, not just possessions, but a different pattern. A calmer legacy. A healthier example. Psychologists call this generativity, the desire to guide, mentor, and contribute to the next generation. To me, it feels like this simple thought: let my life make somebody else's life easier. Sometimes that contribution is big. Sometimes it's small. Sometimes it's a phone call you used to avoid. Sometimes it's an apology that's overdue. Sometimes it's teaching a younger man that strength isn't only endurance. Strength is also softness. Strength is also honesty. Strength is also knowing when to stop. So if you're in your 50s and you feel yourself pulling away from the noise, don't fight.
If this reflection stayed with you, you're welcome to subscribe and continue the journey.